Rachel, welcome to Parenting Toolbox TV. It's great to have you on here. So, Rachel Newman, I've known you now for what, probably coming up to 20 years over in various lights. But I guess I first met you when I was on the board of trustees at Lighthouse, where you brilliantly ran their HR department and have gone on to have a really accomplished career in HR. I think recently just having left the RNLI, having headed that up, which is amazing. But yeah, you've taken a few, you're on a different road now, aren't you? Which we'll get into in a little bit. But just tell me a little bit about your journey so far.
Yeah, well, that's a lovely introduction. Thank you, Jane. It's amazing how things go full circle, isn't it? So here we are.
I must say you are also a mum, and you have been a brilliant mum as well. So I'll add that in.
Bless you. Yeah, just chuck it in on the end there. Just that small thing with raising that human being. But no, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess just to sort of add to your summary. I mean, I've had a career in HR the last 30 years. You know, I went to uni, studied, did my degree, and kind of came out the other side quite determined to develop my career. So I've worked across different sectors, sort of retail, commercial environments, but for the major part of my career, I've worked full-time within the charity sector in local and national charities. And as you say, in that time, having sort of started my career, sort of travelled to the UK and lived in London and so on, in my sort of late 20s, came back down to the south, met my husband and started my family. So my daughter is 19, coming on 20. She's in a second year at uni in Falmouth now. I have had 10 wonderful years at the RNLI, and as part of the opportunities and the challenges that were afforded to me there, I'd sort of grown up through the sort of various levels of management and was at senior management level as head of people. Through that route, I was on a talent plan for directorship, so very much in sort of on the horizon and sort of within the sort of immediate term, I was being coached and sort of mentored around the potential of becoming a director. That was my path over the last 18 months, and then I'm now 50, and you know, life has thrown a few curveballs in the last couple of years. Obviously, we've talked about Olivia going to university, which was planned. But has been a bigger change than we'd anticipated, particularly for me as mum. Alongside that, very sadly, Andy and I have experienced parental bereavement and have lost, Andy sadly has lost both his mum and dad in the last couple of years due to cancer, which has been, you know, a whole, again, another lesson in life, perhaps a little bit earlier in life than we'd anticipated, to be fair. And then combined with that, as I've headed towards 50, I'm obviously embracing all things perimenopause, and my health is, you know, I'm okay, but it's taken a knock. You know, I'm much more conscious of my health, and you know, my performance and how I am day to day has been quite significantly impacted by sort of general symptoms. So this melting pot of personal change, combined with this sort of quite traditional trajectory and career, the two came together with quite a loud bang middle of last year. I was in the process to become director. I was in recruitment rounds, and an increasingly loud voice screaming at me that it actually wasn't what I wanted to do, which was a really tough moment for me.
That is tough, isn't it? But sometimes these things, you know, are thrown at us. They're meant to be, aren't they? And it's actually listening to what's going on internally as well as what's going on externally, and just, you know, making shifts.
Yeah, and you know, there's something about ambition which is not, you know, traditionally defined. You know, ambition. I am really ambitious. I just started to realise since that I sort of had that crunch moment, and then I've been unpacking it. Just that my ambitions are for something different. And you know, I've done everything. I've been incredibly sensible, and I've had an incredibly rewarding career. But at 50, you know, I'm not done.
No, but do you find you're maybe asking yourself that question now of like, what next? You know, maybe, you know, what is my actual purpose? What do I really find is driving me? Because I would imagine in HR, and I've never been in HR, but what I can imagine is that it's very much helping other people, being empathetic to other people the whole time, and probably finding yourself quite low down on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're helping people, but you're kind of supporting the business to solve problems and create opportunities, right? So you're constantly assessing the environment. You're constantly mapping out routes to solutions, and generally it's a very outward facing. Very outward facing. I get a huge amount of reward when it lands and you solve something, but increasingly, what I find is that there's been a little part of me for quite a long time that's had ambition for herself. But I think because of all of the layers of responsibility, all of the kind of the day-to-day mechanics of mortgages, and a husband who's self-employed, and a daughter that was going to go to uni, and there's lots of reasons why you say, well, no, I'll save that. I can't do that now. It's too much risk. It's not about me. I've got to keep all this going.
Keeping safe, isn't it? Sometimes you have to sort of reach out that comfort zone and do something for yourself. And I think also as parents, as a mum, we're constantly giving out, and we tend to forget about what's really important to us. And when we do, the mum guilt sets in, doesn't it? And we feel like, actually, I shouldn't be thinking about me. I've got everybody else to think about first. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think also that I've been sort of doing quite a lot of deep reflection since I made this decision and sort of started this next sort of phase of professional development. It's really important to me that I kind of reflect on what I need from this in order to be fulfilled. And I realize now that little voice inside was probably there for quite some time, saying you want something else. This is not everything. It shows up in very small different ways, but I think I didn't want to hear it, or I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was in some ways keeping myself busy as a way of deflecting from actually looking inwards.
That's quite easy, isn't it, to keep busy and deflect from everything that's going on around, just to and I think also at this time, when elderly parents or youngsters moving on, and that's what we got talking about, wasn't it, quite recently, was this sort of transitioning going on into uni, which I'm at the stage now where my daughter is going on to uni, and if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I'd say, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not ready for that. Well, it's not about me, is it, really? But that's where I was at. And now I'm actually thinking, no, the time is right. You actually do grow where that separation needs to happen. But I'm sure it'll be horrendous. But you've been through it recently, well, last year. So we got chatting about that and sort of the feelings you had and how your daughter coped. Because I think there's a lot of mums out there at the moment. I know we're all sort of frantically thinking, how do we get their grants and their financing? And there's lots of chat going on around that. But emotionally, how did you both cope?
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think run up, Olivia's a very sort of self-motivated, quite a mature young woman. I've not really had to push her through this process of going to university. It was something that she wanted to do herself, and she'd selected where she wanted to go and been very self-sufficient about it. So that was great, because it was helping her to kind of take ownership of life, which was something she was going to have to do fairly quickly. It's right. It just meant that earlier than possibly I had anticipated, that sort of separation, the preparation for separating. Certainly in that summer before, I found myself consciously just holding back on the offer of a lift, or holding back on, doing the washing, or maybe just saying, so do you want to, giving her more to do, just in my own way, just thinking, well, she's got to get used to the fact that we're not going to be here. So going into it, a lot of people were kind of loading me with expectations of it being dreadful, but I felt we were in a pretty good place, as did Liv. We were really excited. And we dropped her down on the Saturday. She's in Falmouth. We dropped her down on the Saturday late. She was in halls, so that was all great. Very, communal living, all really nice. So we dropped her down at 4, offloaded all her boxes. Didn't really meet her kind of roommates, but left to do it. We stayed down there, and I was coming back in on the Sunday to take her to do a big food shop, which is kind of the rites of passage, isn't it? To spend one big shop. But what came back to was something I just hadn't anticipated. Olivia had been up pretty much all night, and after we'd left on the Saturday, she'd just had a massive confidence dip. I think just the reality of boxes, being somewhere she didn't know, and I'm not sure, but I don't think it was a great first hello to her new housemates. Just gave her the fear, but it started really what was then 3.5 months of really extreme homesickness, which we just were not ready. We had not anticipated.
That's heartbreaking, isn't it? I think, yeah,
and that. There was very little support around for that, actually. You're kind of in a really difficult space because you needed a mum. In any other situation like that, you'd be there in a minute.
Yes.
Physically, geographically, we could have got in a car and been there, but actually it was still quite a way. But more so, the bits of advice about homesickness were don't resist doing that too quickly. Everybody goes through it. And it will be fine. But when you get to sort of, I don't know, week 7, week 8, and all of the colour has gone, and it is just tears and a real a sense of depression. It was really hard.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And how did the unis help or cope with that? Because I guess they think, well, you're 18, you're an adult now, don't you? But
very much so. I think universities, certainly on the prospectuses and open days, they are talking a lot more about well-being now. I think there have been a couple of quite high-profile cases nationally of students that were. So I think universities are getting much better at it. But you still have, our experience is that you still have a sort of division between what I would call the kind of the teacher, the lecturing team of the course, and then what I would call the pastoral support and wellbeing that comes in a slightly different package. Because Olivia was feeling isolated, she didn't have those connections with her lecturers and with her fellow students. So she didn't know how to let them know that she was struggling because she just didn't have that rapport. So we did, I encouraged her, and in the end I insisted that she make contact with sort of the wellbeing team. And they're brilliant. They were brilliant, and they have on-site sort of counsellors and support. I mean, it was bad homesickness, nothing deeper than that. Olivia's mental resilience other than this had been really strong. But I needed to know she was getting support. Interestingly, I did, I'm trying so hard not to step in and, if you're at school, you'd be straight on the phone, wouldn't you, to the teacher, or you'd wait and let someone know, and you can't do that. And I thought, I've just got to send an email. So I knew her head of curriculum, but I got a very, very brief answer back that, she is an adult, and, thank you for the heads up, but but we'll take it from here, sort of thing. They don't really get into a dialogue with parents.
No, I think the important thing here is to just instill in our kids that it's okay to ask for help if you're struggling, because I think they they feel it's a sign of weakness, don't they? That
I guess the watch point for me is that in quite a traditional way, universities still have this period of time at the beginning of the year around Freshers' Week. And I just look back on my own experience of that. It's very, and I believe it's still very sort of alcohol fueled and sort of socially, it's very much about going out and seeing all the local hotspots and things. Now, that's great if you like that sort of stuff, right? But my daughter Olivia, she's not a big drinker. She's not a big party animal, and so going into that sort of environment to meet people is probably her worst nightmare. So she had easily a period of 2 weeks before her course really started, where she felt the pressure was on her to be out there making friends, and in fact she spent the entire time in her room. Had I known it was going to be like that, would I have done anything different? I'm not sure. They need to get there and start living.
Yeah, they do. And it is that transition, isn't it? But I think it'd be really interesting, people listening to this, to, hear your comments and maybe get the conversation going about, maybe some experiences that you've had or some things you're worried about. And let's try and, help each other along the way here.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I didn't know who to reach out with, and it literally was, who do I know that's been through this? And I found one friend who I know, whose daughter had been severely homesick, and I absolutely, went round, had a cup of tea, and I just needed to talk to them, because it's a bit like when you become a parent, you're looking for this book that says this is how you do it. Because 1 minute I'm saying to Andy, I'm going down, and he says, no, you're not, and then he'd be like, right, I can't bear this anymore, I'm going down. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I know. There is no manual, is there? It's unfortunate. No. But but this whole transition, it'd be really good to get a conversation going around this. And
I think it's part of this whole picture of transition, this life stage. It may be that you're not a parent, but you have parents. It may be that you you are professionally just finding yourself unfulfilled. There is definitely, I think, a moment around this life stage, I think, for men and women, where you become much more conscious of time. You evaluate your life, and it's almost internally you're asking yourself, how have I done? Like, am I living? It's quite a profound moment, I think.
Profound. It's purpose, it's why, isn't it? What do I want to go to the grave being remembered for? What is my legacy? I want to leave something behind to be remembered for. So on that note, what are your next steps?
Yeah, so it's all really exciting. I'm trying not to come up with a perfect solution too quickly. Going back to the fact that I've led a pretty linear, pretty sort of traditional, straight, sort of very sensible career path to now. It's taking me a little while just to tune in to me and to listen.
I was going to say, is that quite hard for you? Because I know that you're the perfectionist. You want everything to go just so, because, you want to solve these problems and make things right and help organizations. But that's quite a hard habit to break, isn't it? And I think it's wonderful that you're giving yourself or allowing yourself some time, because so many people just rush into the next thing, don't they?
Yeah. And I think, if you're not careful, if you rush, I mean, acknowledging that, in most cases you do need to have a level of pace if you've got to generate, an income for yourself. But if you rush, I think the risk is you start creating something in the vision of what you think you should have, or what you think others are looking for, as opposed to what really matters and what's important to you. I haven't I'm very clear in my mind, I haven't walked away from a phenomenal career in a great organization to replicate the same situation in a different way. I want to live with purpose. I want to really try and design my career around design my life around what's important to me now going forward, rather than being driven by needs that are materialistic, if you like. So Jane, I cannot tell you how hard it is for me to sit and prioritize myself. I'm so fidgety, and my mind is constant. So I've had to sort of really adopt some sort of self-development techniques. I've really had to sort of work on things like mindfulness, breath work, yoga and Pilates. All of these things really help you to train your mind to firstly to just slow down, but then also to stay present, to bring your mind back from wherever it goes.
Yeah, but also that then opens your mind up to new things and new ideas and new things that you can offer.
But really, so for me, I mean, for me, where my heart is going, aligned to sort of my professional knowledge and experience, my heart is going, is that I've started to train. Well, I've previously trained as a life coach from a sort of personal interest perspective, but I'm now adding to that sort of a master's level qualification in executive coaching and mentoring. That's a really strong kind of broad spectrum coaching course, but I want to support women, ambitious, aspiring women. I don't want to put a label on where they are. They might be like us. They might be kind of setting up their own thing. They might be within business. They might be at the earliest stages in their career, or they might be in this midlife phase. But I think there's a real sort of movement that has obviously been happening for a few years now. But this next generation, you know, our girls and their friends, that you know, that sort of feminist sort of, you know, expectation of design, unlike us, where we were kind of told do it all, and we've tried and we've done it. They're a little bit wiser. I think they know that they've got choices. They know that they should expect and do expect the equality of opportunity, but they also value, I think, the quality of their life.
Yes.
And life for them is much bigger than a job for life. It's life within which they find. So yeah, I want to take maybe some from our future generation and help support others with that.
And I think, you know, that, as you say, the future generation coming up and what the teens struggle with today is, you know, the pressures on them academically, but equally it's about educating them to have a broader outlook on life, to be adaptable, to have transferable skills, to be able to look at doing things maybe a bit differently to how, as you say, the job for life or how we were doing things. But that's another story, isn't it? Education system needs to shake up, but we, you know, hey ho. But I just really want to thank you for coming on, and just to thank you for your honesty. It's just been a breath of fresh air. And I know personally, I know you're going to go so far with whatever you decide to do and whatever route you go down. Just go with that gut feeling, as you say, and just, yeah. But you're working on all the right things, which I love. I just love it, Rachel. So
I've got some very inspiring people in my life, Jane, you being one of them. So thank you very much for the words of encouragement.
Bless you. Thank you so much. And thanks for listening, everyone. And don't forget to add some comments and get the conversation going about, well, any of it we've talked about, but really transitioning of our kids to uni. But yeah, thank you so much. Take care.